Can you guys see my screen?
Can, Doctor.
Okay. Is it recorded?
Yes, yep.
All right. Okay. So I think we can start now. We have how many participants just now? Okay, 62. Right. Okay. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, everybody. So today is your second day for your studio. Okay. I think everyone is very eager to present your findings for the literature review after this. So I won't take a very long time to explain to you about this vernacular architecture in Southeast Asia, because this one is only can be an overview, right? Because I want everybody to research it more in your project one later. So I won't give because this one it is not a spoon feed activity and so on. So you need to research it by yourself. Okay, I only give you an overview of the things that you need to highlight in your project one. Okay. Right, so I am Dr. Fadlina. So my topic for today is identity of Southeast Asia vernacular architecture. Right. Okay. First of all, I would like to ask you, what is vernacular? Can somebody answer me? What do you know about vernacular architecture? Did you come across this word before this? Any one of you? Guys? Or it's too early? Can I pick names?
Can, Doctor, can.
Okay. I want to hear from our direct intake students. Amir Zaim, did you come across this word vernacular before this? I think for the direct intake students, they already have this kind of measured drawing and so on. So you are more familiar with
Hello.
these kind of terms. Yes. Amir.
Oh, yes. Vernacular architecture is an architecture that's defined by local or regional influences.
Okay. Good. Can I have from Farrell? So, what do you understand by vernacular architecture?
Hey, doctor.
Farrell, are you here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
From what I know, vernacular architecture is architecture that is based on the local regional design with its using its local materials and techniques.
Right, good. I think all of you, because you have already do some research for this upcoming literature review presentation before this, so perhaps you has already do some research on the vernacular architecture, traditional architecture, and so on. Okay, good. So the term vernacular means domestic, native, indigenous. So these are the related terms that can be reflected to the vernacular architecture. Okay, it also can be called as architecture without architect, because it can be done outside any academic tradition and without any professional guidance. Okay, it is based on the local and the humans that surround the building. Beside tradition, there are also other close to vernacular meaning terms, such as we also can call it as folk architecture or indigenous architecture, or even spontaneous architecture. Okay, because this is done with the local context and so on. So it is done without the architect. Okay. And okay, this one is definition of vernacular architecture. It refers to the technology adopted for constructing buildings which are locally available, environmentally oriented, community-based, and a reflection of the technology and the indigenous culture of the society and its environment. So it is mostly related to what are the things that surround it, okay, which reflect to the architecture of that particular building. It doesn't acknowledge an architect, but it is an old reflection of the historical, environmental, and cultural context to which it belongs. So if you are doing research on your project one later, you need to fulfill all these related attributes that carried the that influence the architecture of the house that you have chosen. Okay, on the historical part, what are the things that influence the origin of that house? Okay, environmental and cultural, what are the things that surround the house, the site, and also the people around it? Each element of vernacular building contributes in a unique way through its form and shape specific to a place. So after this, after you have done your research, you may realize that all the vernacular architecture which is located in different region, they have different criteria, different characteristic between each other, right? So these are the things that we want to highlight in your project one. We want you to learn from your peers what are the differences, what are the similarities between those buildings. Okay, this is a very good book. I think you have to at least have a look at this book later of this especially for your project one, because your project one will be brought out until your project three later. Try to find encyclopedia of vernacular architecture so that you can get all this. You can be very familiar with all the terms and so on. Okay, so basically based on the encyclopedia, the meanings of the word vernacular architecture comprising the dwellings and all other related building of the people. Same like before this, it is related to environmental context, available resources, and also community based and using traditional technologies. These are the example of a Malay traditional house. How does it reflect back to the climatic consideration? Okay, that's why it is built like this. All forms of vernacular architecture are built to meet specific needs, accommodating the values, economies, and ways of life. Okay, so these are all the keywords that you need to look around after this. Some of the background, it is a significant part of the heritage, but usually it is neglected due to the fact that priorities are often given to the heritage of national and international significance. And for instance, usually for the vernacular architecture, it is also usually for the individual human being. So it is not really been highlighted in terms of the conservation, heritage, restoration, and so on. Since vernacular architecture in Southeast Asia tends to be built from local materials such as wood, that does not last long in the tropical environment. Okay, and many buildings were built following an assumption that they will rebuild or repaired. They normally be left ruined because of they cannot the resilience is not really there because of the material that they have used. And also you also need, these are also an important keywords in terms of while you are finding, while you are researching your project one later on the ritual and belief of specific ethnic that you that are using this the house that you have selected. Okay, vernacular architecture across the world, the construction was based on traditional and community knowledge. This one is one of the example where they are using the bamboo. Okay, the bamboo. So the bamboo is tied using ropes. Okay, and then you can see how all the jointing from the post and also on the steel and also on the wall, and how does the wall is connected to the roof. Okay, so there are specific details and jointings that you need to study after this. How does they join with each other? Okay, reflecting the characteristic of the local environment, climate, culture, natural material, technology, and experience of the community building. So Okay, so what can we learn from the vernacular architecture? These are the things. Vernacular architecture helps in the first one, a conceptual approach to your design process. Okay, mind you that the project one will be related to your project two later. Okay, so you need to, I think, please do more research on this project one because it will be brought out to your project two later, because for the project two you are going to use the same approach. It is more on the community based building, and you need to know the social culture of that particular area in order for you to do your design process for project two. Makes the project sustainable in many aspects. Locally available materials are cheaper compared to the opposite. Thus, the project has lower cost, and also long-term maintenance is also easy and cheap. So these are the benefit or the advantages of vernacular architecture. We can take some of the G's and bring it to our model building later. Okay, basically based on the preferences of the project later. Okay, in general, the settlement in the form of the house is a system of many components that are designed to be highly contact sensitive, that improve the physical environment into a more comfortable and satisfying environmental. So, okay, right. So there are differences between vernacular and traditional. Anyone can tell me what is the difference between these two? How does traditional is different from vernacular? Anyone? You can just type on the chat box. Guys. Kritaran. Can you tell me what is the difference between vernacular and traditional?
Traditional is more to culture.
Traditional is more on the culture, but vernacular is also on the culture. It's okay. Thank you, Kri. Just Li Lang Just. Can you tell me what is the difference between these two, vernacular and traditional? Vernacular, who said that? Vernacular is more simplistic, while traditional is well-developed construction. Okay. Close to it. Jess, are you here? Guys, I cannot see you, so I just call out your names. Muhammad Shafiq, traditional house. Wait. Traditional building shows a developed style of construction and expression. Okay, so traditional is one step ahead from the vernacular. Vernacular architecture is the architecture for domestic usage by local people using local material, as we said before this. But for this traditional architecture, it is the architecture that prevailed in the region over a longer period of time. Okay, and it is inherited from one generation to another generation. Okay, the structures built using the traditional principle withstood the test of time, so it is better than the vernacular because it can stand. It is more resilient. This is the example of the vernacular architecture. Okay, the heart of Toda tribe of India. Note the decoration of the front wall and a very small door, protection from wild animals. So this one is one example of the vernacular architecture. This is the things that which is related to the local context. Why do they need to have this kind of very small door? It is because there are a lot of wild animals over here which surround the buildings, and they need to protect themselves from this animal. So they only provided this kind of small opening. Okay, so that are the things that are reflected by the local surrounding. This one is a Maasai house in Africa. The one of the best known tribes in Tanzania. Interestingly, the men are not responsible for building these houses, but it's the women who take charge of this duty. Okay, so these are the local culture and the local custom over there. The man is not going to build this house, but it is built by the woman, right? So it is different with this. Perhaps in our country, all the carpenters, all the house builders are all men. But for this region, the female is the one who built their houses. Okay, so these are the difference in terms of the ritual or the tradition across the border. Okay, and then this one is Mongolian yurt. Circular structure supported by collapsible wooden frame and covered with wool fat. Okay, so this one is made by the local. They are using the local material that they can find in the surrounding. Okay, so these are some of the example only. The term vernacular is more on a modern term to describe regional architecture that usually involve a professional builder. Unlike traditional architecture, which uses a skilled builder and craftsman. Okay, so these are the example of wood carvers. Okay, so it is more on the traditional houses where we have all this skill is inherited from their great grandfather and so on. So they continue the skill and to do the wood carving and so on. Traditional architecture passed down from the person to person, generation to generation, through countless experience and deep understanding of the built environment, conscious or subconsciously. So you can see the traditional houses which are the product of uh, civilization all over the years. Okay, and then this one is also the same thing. Characteristic of traditional architecture, it has the skill of survivalism and also adaptability to the local climates. Okay, it also involves the skill and craft, like I said before. Perhaps some of the house builders and also the wood carvers and so on, they learn it from they inherit it from their great grandfather. Okay, culture and lifestyle, climate, environmental, and also the local material. These are also example of traditional architecture. For the brick house of Iran, they are made entirely by the brick, okay, because the bricks can be easily found at Iran. And also this one is Oriental architecture. Oriental architecture refers to building and the style in Asia. Much of this derived is coming from ancient Chinese architecture. So this one, I think if you are doing this in your project one, it is very interesting because there are a lot of things that you can talk about, especially on the Chinese rituals, like Chinese cultural, on their feng shui, on their motif and decoration. They have a lot of things which is very interesting if you want to dig more about it after this. So perhaps after this, I can see some of you or one of the groups that are studying on this kind of Chinese architecture. Okay, perhaps. This one, I think our friends from Untan, they know it better from us. We have Indonesian ethnic houses. Okay, because in Indonesian they have a they have a lot of ethnics all around the country. Okay, for instance, the first one is the Toraja house. The second one is South Nias house. The third one is Karo Batak, Toba Batak, Minangkabau, Mentawai, Kenyah, Jawa, Sumba, Amarasi, Atoni, South Bali, Bali Aga, Sasak, Dani, and so on. Can I have somebody from Untan? I just want to ask you, Silva, are you here?
Yes, doctor, yes.
Silva, do you know all this? Do you know all this kind of typology of the houses? Have you been to all of this?
Not yet.
So which one that you have visited before?
Rumah Betang. Not in this list.
Is it the only one?
Yes,
Why? Because it is located from far from each other, right?
because it's in different island,
Mm-hmm.
so it's hard to get them.
Okay. All right. Anybody who has already visited at least 3 of these? Our friends from Untan. Can I hear from Salwa?
Same as Silva, Doctor. I haven't visit there.
Any of these?
Yeah, not just Rumah Betang or Rumah
Okay.
Gadang, not at the list.
All right. Is there any of the building that has been shifted to the ataupun or refunctioned as a museum that you know? Any of the traditional houses that has been gazetted as museum or living gallery and so on over there? No. Okay. So because Indonesia they have a lot of ethnics, not as Malaysia. Malaysia for the various ethnic usually they live in Sabah and Sarawak and so on. Okay, but for Indonesia they have various and a lot of ethnic which are different from each other. So they have a lot of typologies of the houses. So it is very interesting if you can study about all these houses for your project one later. Okay, looking forward for this kind of houses. Okay, same like Malaysia. This one is Malaysia for your information, especially for the international students. Okay, um, we have this one is Peninsula Malaysia, and in the Peninsula Malaysia we have 12 states, and all the states they have the different typologies of Malay traditional houses. For instance, in Johor, perhaps the Malay traditional houses is more on the Lima's house, and we also have some ethnic minority ethnic coming from Javanese and also Bugis. Okay, so the architecture of the houses are different from the one that we have in Malacca, for instance. Okay, and if you can see from here, for this Seremban Negeri Sembilan, it has the influences from the Minangkabau, Indonesia. If you can see the main difference is coming from curved roof. Okay, this one is taking the influences coming from the Minangkabau, Indonesia. Okay, and in Kelantan we have rumah, we call it as rumah tiang 12, which is it can be translated as houses which has 12 still. Okay, and also we have the long roof house at the Malacca, and also in Perlis and Kedah and so on. So all these Malay houses, although it's sharing the same common things like it is built on stilt and they are using the steep roof, but there are difference in terms of their spatial arrangement and so on. So after this, if you are going to research it more, you can find out the difference in terms of the region for each traditional houses. Okay. Although all of these things are called Malay traditional houses, but it is different from each other. The symbolic meanings of vernacular houses, the gender of space. Okay, these are the things that you need to consider in order for you to build a house, especially when you are dealing with traditional houses and so on. Okay, the first one is the gender of a space, whereas for instance in Malay traditional houses we have this kind of Islamic teaching where where the segregation of male and female is really important. Okay, so it is put in terms of the spatial arrangement and so on. Men cannot enter the women's space and vice versa. Okay. And then we have also private and public space. This one is more on the segregation between the homeowner and also the guest. Okay. and also anthropomorphic thought, which is related to human characteristic, attribution of human traits, emotion, or intention. Okay, it also can be related to anthropometric and also ergonomics of particular house design. Okay, we can look more on this symbolic meaning after this by using the example of houses. This one is only some introduction, I mean the background of Southeast Asia. Okay, it consists of 11 countries. The region's distinct culture emerged from the blending of indigenous civilization with Eastern belief from China and India, and with Western influences using the trade routes that run through this crossroad between East and West. Okay, and also all these 11 countries is using the same common geographical, climate, and historical context, as you can see, because we are located near to the equator. So we tend to have the common geographical and climate and historical context. Okay, all these 11 countries: Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Brunei, Philippines, Indonesia, and also Singapore and Malaysia. Okay, so these are the countries that which is located in Southeast Asia. However, Southeast Asian countries are dissimilar due to their ethnic and religious differences, which led to each country's own subtle characteristic in housing. So Vietnam has their own ethnics staying at their country. Malaysia has their own ethnics, and all this ethnic has different belief and custom. Okay, that's why we are different from each other. Okay. This one is only the history of the Southeast Asian cities where the movement and the trace of Austronesian in order to complete this Southeast Asian cities. Okay, it is formed by complex layers of various cultures, ideologies, economics, ecosystem, urban morphology, and architectural typologies. Okay, so before you go to the individual house later, you may want to know more about the origin of all these people. Okay, this one is the research discovered that Malays in this subethnic group were genetically composed of some Proto-Malay, orang Melayu asli, Semang and Indian DNA, which at least 20% Malay and 52% Chinese DNA. So it is a mix of influences from others ethnic as well. Okay, and then this one is the geo-identity of Southeast Asia architecture. On the land, they might stay in the mountain. Okay, and then the daily activities or that they do is hunting, cultivating rice, and etc. And for those who are staying near the water body, they might do fishing or hunter gatherer, okay, in order for them to self-sustain their living, right? So these are only for your information on the basic of this kind of people. How does the identity of these people influence the architecture of the houses? These are types of settlement that we can see in the Southeast Asia. The first one, we can see the nomadic settlement. It is a continuous territorial movement to seek better subsistence condition, to find sources of food, water, fertile land, better climatic condition, etc. So for the nomad people, they move from one place to another to find a better life. Okay. And then the second one type of settlement is insular settlement, where they are isolated from the others and largely self-contained. They make their own settlement, and they are isolated from other people. Usually they will choose an island to start a living, and then they started to build the settlement over there. Okay. And then another type of settlement is sedentary settlement. Discovery of agriculture and animal husbandry that mean of survival. So they do the settlement over here because they need to sustain their living by doing the agriculture and so on. Okay. Character of Southeast Asia Traditional Architecture by Amos Rapoport. Amos Rapoport is an architect and he has already authored 200 academic publications in this field. So according to him, architecture for Is Vernacular is not only translated into a house as a place, but also the place to show ideas, appreciate the ancestors, the realization of group identity, and the division of social classes and also the strata. Okay, so I think perhaps you are not really familiar with this yet, but after you have completed your project one, hopefully you are going to be more familiar about this thing, the things that have influenced the architecture of the buildings that you have chosen. The Austronesian houses have some characters like the square house shape, stand above columns, and the entrance are often stairs. Okay, so this one is also, I think because you haven't done your project one yet, perhaps you are not very familiar. But if you see after this, most of the houses are square house shape and it is on stilts, and also they have staircase. It is also full of symbolism, such as interpretation of the space that apply to social relations such as genders, use and elderly generation, even the live and the dead. Okay, and also usually there are elevated house and columns and beams to support the floors. They are tied into another without using nails. Okay, the proportion of the roof is often bigger than the body and the feet below part. Okay, because usually it is directly related to the climatic consideration. So the roof needs to be bigger than the body and the feet of the house. Okay, this one is the example of the things that have been mentioned by Amos Rapoport before this. This one is example of Toraja House, which is located in South Sulawesi, Indonesia. And the roof is curved like boat, consisting of bamboo structure. Currently part of Tonkonan using zinc roof. Okay, so they are using, for the traditional houses, they are using the bamboo, and the bamboo is tied to one another. And then the also has some influence of I think it is influenced from the Chinese look of the boat. Okay, that's why the image of the roof is like this. At the front, there is a row of water buffalo horns. The interior of the room used as bed and kitchen, and also some place they use it for to store the bodies. And if you can see from here, from the interior side, not only they are using the one which is located in the middle of the house. Okay, not only they are using the one which is in the middle of the house, they are you also use the one which is located underneath the house. Okay, for instance, they use this area uh for their animals that they breed. Okay, so that all these component, all these spaces in this house has its own function. Okay, so those are the things that we want to know more about during your project one later. You need to research on what are the specific usage of each part of the house. This one is an example of traditional Malay houses. As you can see from here, this one is the space arrangement from the front into the back of the house. Okay, this one especially for, I think for our international student, is if you want to know more about our Malay culture and so on, these are the common spatial arrangement for the traditional Malay houses. Usually, the male entrance is located in front of the house. Okay, this one is the main entrance. So the male will use this staircase to go to the upstairs. And while for the female, because we have this segregation between the gender, the female can use the one which is located at the back. Okay, this one is pelanta. Pelanta means the transition between the main house to the kitchen. Okay, sorry I didn't translated this one, but this one is the transition space. This one is kitchen. Okay, that's why female can come from here so that they can directly go to the kitchen. Okay, while for the men, they will use this main staircase, and then they can just chit chat over here, especially for the guests. This one is space for the guests. So either they chit chat over here at the veranda, Serambi is veranda, or they can go until up here. Usually the homeowner will only allow guests to go until the anjong. Anjong is balcony. Okay, so these are the part of the for the guests, and this one is for the house owner. Okay, so only the house owner and their family can enter this particular area. Okay, so I think after this, because every work base they will have some students who are doing the Malay traditional houses, so all the international students can also learn from us. Okay, and usually for the Malay traditional houses we only have one roof, one room. So what the one room is only, this is bilik is room. Okay, only one room for the daughters. Okay, only the for the female uh for the family members who are the female only. Okay, so these are the things I think you are going to learn it better after this during your studio trade session and so on. And then this one is also the climatic design of the Malay house. Not only on the Malay house, I think all the houses that you are going to choose after this, they have the way on how they respond to the climatic design. So this one is only on the example for the Malay traditional houses where the climatic design is reflected through the design of the roof. For instance, we have the ventilated roof space to help to cool the house, so when the hot air enter the house, they can uh, go out using this ventilation through roof joint. Okay, and also we have atap roofing, which has low thermal capacity and also low thermal mass, means that it only stores a very minor heat. Okay, so it gives good insulation against heat, and also they have this they are built on stilts so that it catches the winds of higher velocity underneath the house. Okay, and also you can also check the materials that are used to build the house. Okay, it is a lightweight construction, and also using the low thermal capacity, right? And all of this, I think I hope that everybody will learn from each other during your quiz session, because it is very interesting. You need to know all of this thing. Okay, this one is also the external environment of the Malay house. So usually for the Malay house, we have a very big compound. Okay, if you can see from here, we have all this well, okay, and it is surrounded by the vegetation and so on, so it can help to cool down the house, right? And also it also gives the privacy from the outsiders from seeing the house. Okay, so I think after this I will share this slide so that you can know much better about this one. Okay, this one is also some of example how do the traditional houses respond to the climatic design. In terms of building material, okay, as I said before, building materials, they are using low thermal mass materials. And in terms of the layout, how do they put one space to another? Okay, ventilation of the roof space, vegetation that they have in the compound, cross ventilation, you can see from the openings from this veranda until the kitchen. Okay, so they have the cross ventilation on how not to trap the hot air inside the building. Wind velocity gradient, ventilation at body level, orientation, and so on. Even the orientation, you need to know what is the best orientation for that particular building. This one is going to be your challenges after this, because for your project 2, you will have your own site, and then how you need to know how to orientate your building so that you can get the maximum thermal comfort. Okay. These are only some of the examples that we can see around the Southeast Asia. This one is state houses in Myanmar, which is it is located on a lake, and it is built by local people. And then housing there provides some good example of how people live with water. So you can also find this kind of example, so that you can know what is the culture of these people. For instance, why they need to put their house in the lake instead of they just use the land, or they can just put their house on the riverbank. Okay, perhaps it is related to their daily activities as fishermen and so on. Okay, and then this one example of in Vietnam, we have Bah Narong and H Longhouse. This one is Bah Narong, and this one is H Longhouse in Vietnam. Okay, somebody perhaps one of you are going to do the Longhouse in Sarawak in Malaysia, for instance. But you need to also, perhaps you can study what is the difference between Malaysian Longhouse with the longhouse that we have in Vietnam, because this longhouse, although it is the same typology, there are differences between in terms of the material that you use, and even the spatial arrangement in this building, for instance. Okay, so that would be very interesting. You can find out more. For instance, for the long house, they usually consisted of several families. So how do they segregate between families? Is it one door for one family? Okay, so these are the things that you need to find out after this. Will be very interesting. All right. This one has been mentioned before this, Tongkonan in South Sulawesi, Indonesia. The main characteristic of this building is the roof, which is shaped like a Royal Chinese boat design. And then also, I think this is very interesting about the post, and with the buffalo horns over here. Do you know what is the symbol of this one? It is related to the symbolism. Anyone? I think we can have a representative from Untan. Do you know what is the meaning of this buffalo horns over here? Why some of the houses they don't have this buffalo horns post, but this one they have it here? Guys, Firmansha,
I think it's
Firmansha, do
about
you know?
pride.
It's about pride. Is it
Yes.
Firmansha? Okay. How does it related? Why does this one has a lot of buffalo horns over here, but some of the houses they don't have it? Even the post is not there. Why?
Because of the social hierarchy.
So this one is belong to whom? When you talk about the social hierarchy, it is related to the leader of the society and also the commoners, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I read it before this. If there are a lot of buffalo horns over here, so the ranking of the particular homeowner is higher than those who only have less buffalo horns over here. Is it true, Pimansha? Is it true? The more buffalo horns that you have, the higher ranking that you are in that society. Is it?
Yes, doctor. Is true.
Okay. So I think maybe doctor. Who said that it is true? Okay, okay. So there these are also the things which is related to the cultural context. Okay. For instance, perhaps this one is the leader of the society, but the one without the post and the buffalo horns, they are only the commoners. Okay. So you need to. Okay, it's okay, Pemasha. Alright, so after this, you need to, perhaps you can research later. I think some of you guys are doing on these Toraja houses, which is very interesting. I also would like to know better about this house. Okay, so perhaps we can share it together after this, alright? This one is Nia's traditional house. It is oval shaped, steep roof, and built on steel. Okay, built on steel is a very common characteristic across the Southeast Asia. But the structures able to withstand powerful earthquakes are built without the use of name. Okay, so you also need to check the location and also the things that are surrounding the building. For instance, Nia house, it is in oval shape, which is very it is not common because the common one is on the rectangular shape, right? So this one is oval shape because they want to withstand the earthquakes, because this area usually they will have the effect of the earthquakes, right? So that is why it is important for you to know where is the location of each place, right? And then this one is Bomb Village, Laos. Okay, this one is also interesting because they have all this posts which is made of this bomb. If you read from the description, Laos is the most heavily bombed country in the world. During the Vietnam War, 270 million cluster bombs were dropped in the Laos, and about 80 million of them did not explode. So they use the unexploded bombs, and then they use it for their material for their homes and also for their boats. Okay, which is very very interesting. Okay, we cannot. How come they think of recycling the bomb, which are very dangerous, into this kind of unique architecture? Okay, so that's why we need to know the origin, the history of that particular region, so that we know how does they come out with this idea and so on. This one is traditional house in Thailand. Okay, rising house on stilts provides semi-outdoor space underneath which can be used for storage of tools or architectural equipment, eating meal, social activities, or to avoid being flooded out using the rainy season. Okay, this one is quite similar with Malay traditional house, where this house is built on the steel because we want to make use of this underneath area. Okay, so the Thais, they use this space for the even for the eating space and so on. And for Malay traditional houses, we really use this place especially during the ceremony and so on. We do all this cooking during the ceremony at the base of this underneath of the house. Okay, and then that's why. And another thing, you need also to check the scale of the building. For instance, for Malay traditional houses, perhaps the scale is lower, but this one, it is becoming something like one story height. Okay, you need to check what is the the height from the floor level to the land level. Okay. Technology and symbolism, it is related to the material. Some part of the world, they are using wood, And the wood that we choose for the Southeast Asia architecture, usually it is hardwood, which contains oil, which is resistant to termites. So we usually have problem with the termites for the wooden material. So that's why we need to choose this kind of hardwood, thick and cengal, so that the building can last long. Okay, they also sometimes we are using bamboo, but bamboo it is not really resilient, so we only use it for temporary building. And bamboo, usually the duration of this particular house is only until up to 5 years. Then we need to replace the bamboo. We need to always maintain the bamboo. That's why it is not really preferable in terms of construction. And for the palm grasses, usually we will use it on the roof. As you can see from here, they tie all these palm grasses together, and then they become the roof finishes. Okay. On the technology, Southeast Asia built form, one characteristic feature held together without use of nails, jointing, mortising, pegging, wedging, or binding. Okay, this one we call it in Malay, we call it as tanggam and pasak. Okay, in English we call it is tang and slot. Okay, so I think most of the houses that you have chosen, especially on the traditional and vernacular buildings, they are not using the nail. Okay, they are using the tongue and slot. This one is only example that I have taken from the internet. On the floors, they are built on they are built on steel. Okay, for instance, in Java, they built directly on the ground. Central and East Java, pile construction. For West Java, they have low piles, and for Bali, household structures built on ground, and Thailand raised floor structure. So this is the difference in terms of the region. So every region has its own characteristic, and then which is very interesting because we can know what is the different in terms of the culture and custom. Okay. This one is also example from Indonesia, North Thailand, and Northeast Asia. Okay, in terms of the roof. For the roof, usually they will decorate it using motif and so on, because the roof can be seen from far. So somebody who is going to pass by your house, they can easily detect where is the location of your house by only looking at the roof. That's why usually in traditional houses, they have this decoration at the roof. Okay, for instance, Karo Batak of North Sumatra, they have this saddle back roof developed with variation, decorative gable finials. Okay, usually on the gable side, there we have this motif and patterns because it can be seen from far. And also for the North Thailand and Northeast India, for instance, they have this kind of figures. For instance, they are using the dragon or snake. Okay, so that it is related to their belief. Like I said before, this for the ancient China architecture, they also have all these decorative elements in terms of animal figures, floral figures, and so on. And all these figures and decoration, they have their own meaning. Okay. This one is also birds of naga, silang gunting, open scissors for the Malay house. So this is common in the Malay house. We have silang gunting at the gable end. Okay, horn or buffalo on the Madagascar. This one is all is related to the custom or culture of that particular area. This one, I think you can read it out of the list. For this one is symbolic significance of building elements. Okay, this one is related to the culture and custom of a specific ethnic. For instance, house might not face east-west. So in their belief, for the ethnic of Timor, the house cannot face east and west. So you need to respect the belief of that particular ethnic. If you are going to let's say you are going to redesign a house for them, okay, sun must not enter the house. House is set in opposition to the sun, windowless and dark. Okay, so these are the rules and regulation when you are going to build the house of the Etoni. It is same like feng shui that we have in Chinese architecture. There are things that you need to at least respect them. Okay, um, based on their belief, right? So there are variation of things that you need to know more about. Okay, and then this one is also the same thing. And then on the cosmologies, there are concept to the three-tiered cosmos, middle world inhabited by humans, sandwiched between upper world and lower world. So some of the I think they have also this kind of belief in terms of the cosmology and so on. For instance, in Aceh, house to reflect division of the cosmos into three layers: the sacred upper world, about to the god, the middle about to the humans, and the netherworld is the lower, that is beneath the house most unclean part. Okay, so they have separated their house into three sections, and it is directly related to the cosmologies. House floor raised on pile, attic space where heirlooms are stored, the most sacred. Okay, so in Aceh, they believe that the upper part of the house is the most sacred place if compared to the one which is located underneath the house. Okay, so the Acehnese heavily decorated skirting board which serve to separation of sacred human being space from the irreligious underpart of the house. Okay, so same as Bali, they also have their belief in terms of the cosmologies. I think you can read it after this. Okay, so in summary, common architecture features of Southeast Asia vernacular architecture. It is basically based on post and beam method of construction. Roof are usually the dominant feature, and they usually will have the steep roof because of the climatic consideration. Okay, walls are really load bearing. Screens are prepared separately, prefabricated, assembly with little level. Okay, so this one is related to the body of the house. Buildings are usually raised on stilts because of the climatic consideration, and also they usually have this decorative element, basically based on the culture and also the one that I have said before, based on their custom and belief. Every decorative element has its own meaning. Okay. So, what kills the traditional architecture? I just read it here. It is because of the globalism and the implication. More building using foreign materials, it's not suitable for the climate. For instance, if you are using this, if you are doing this kind of modern building, it has the excessive heat inside the building, excessive glare, human comfort issues, extra energy needed to achieve thermal comfort. So that's why those are the things after you have do your research on the vernacular architecture and so on. Please take some of the gist of the advantages of those houses to be brought to your building. Okay, please don't forget everything that you have learned in your in this project, and then you just build the new modern house for your project 2 later, but without considering all these climatic consideration, cultural context, and so on. Okay, and then these are the result of the globalism, lacking local characteristic, generate space, generate outlook, impose space instead of owner's preferences, profit driven, not user driven. I think okay, sorry. Okay, this one, if you can see from here, how does it reflect back to the one that you have studied before this on the vernacular architecture? You have studied that all the ethnic has their own belief and custom, right? And then it is basically based on the local context and so on. But what we are producing now is the same. Everybody is having the same the same facade of their house. There is no personalization and so on. So that's why it become very generic space, generic outlook. They don't given a chance for us to at least based on our preferences. So especially in the terrace housing and so on, or the apartment and so on lah. Okay. So the result after that, this one is also the result after that. If we don't think all about those vernacular architecture and so on, it can be reflect to the nature gone wrong. So for instance, this one they don't think about the geographical factor and so on. So the flash flood can just came over to your house and so on, right? Okay, I think that's all from me. If you have any question, you can just ask now, because after this we are going to our individual work base for your presentation later. Over to you, Dr. Izura.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Fuad,